Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to do a little page in my Life Crafted album using this gorgeous little color palette here. Now, last week, Lydia from February and June over on Instagram was very kindly doing these kind of custom palettes based on people's Instagram feeds, and I was lucky enough to be one of those people, and so that's what I want to put in my album today. When I got this color palette, I mean, apart from totally loving it, I couldn't believe how well it matched with the Garden Party collection from Crepe Paper. So that's what I'm using today. I've got the From the Heart add-on kit from Citrus Twist. I'm going to use that and a few other kind of little bits and pieces just to make a really simple page. So I have started with a couple of base pages here. It's very hard to see, they're white. They are 5 by 8¼ inches. I have pre-hole punched them, and so all I need to do is make this little cluster and put my page together. It's going to be super simple. Now I want my little custom palette here to be the highlight of the page, so I'm really using these pattern papers just to kind of highlight that, help it stand out off the page a little bit. I'm just adding a few bits and pieces in behind and around my palette, trying to keep to the colors that are actually in there. So, I mean, there's lots of different colors in the Garden Party collection. So mainly I'm trying to stick to the kind of blues, pinks, and just a little bit of that kind of khaki golden yellow color. So I'm not going to add too many like teals or greens or anything like that, just sticking to those 3 main colors that are in the palette, and luckily there's a ton of those in the kit as well. Now this was a good opportunity to use this yellow floral. I didn't know that I would ever find an opportunity to use that. It's a little bit, kind of reminds me of like a 70s wallpaper or something, but it's not really my thing, but I did manage to get a teeny little piece in there. All I'm doing is cutting a bunch of pieces. I had a few scraps, but mostly I'm cutting into whole sheets, which is unlike me as well, so I'm trying to relax that hoarding tendency for this page. I'm only adding like a teeny little bit of adhesive behind all of these because I am going to stitch this down to my page. I just kind of wanted to make, it's not even really like a tag flip or anything, but I just wanted to make this really kind of loose collection of papers at the top. Not everything was sort of glued down and rigid. You can kind of sort of flick through it if you want to, apart from this page here. This is the piece that I'm going to adhere down. All the other layers are just sort of, they're going to sort of float there. They're just going to be stitched. I do want to add some kind of stamping on here though, so I decided to move this cluster over just a little bit so it's a little bit more centered on the page. I did add a tiny little flag at the top that I punched out of that gingham. That gingham is so pretty. And then stitched that all down with my sewing machine. The sewing machine just happened to have pink thread in there. It's not necessarily a design choice, but it worked perfectly, so luckily it did. And then I'm going to use these chipboard alphas, which are perfect. They're pink, they've got this lovely little stripe in them, and I'm going to add my title down here. I'm going to use a fairly large title. That's a lot of letters in there. I'm just saying true colors, and I'm going to add that sort of towards the bottom of the right hand page. So because my cluster on the left is at the top of the page, I want to balance that out by putting my title in this. I mean, it's going to be a very small cluster. This is basically it. I used that cut apart paper and just cut out a little journaling spot. It's got the yellow because I've got the pink in the title, and I'm going to have to try to find a way to add some blue in here as well. But this is kind of the basic layout for my page. I'm going to handwrite my journaling in there. Shock, horror, I know. I'll do that off camera later on. I hadn't quite worked out what I was going to say there. Now, these alphas are self-adhesive. What I love about them is you can kind of punch them through the backing sheet, so it's easy enough to place them and make sure they're how you want them to be before sticking them down, and then go ahead and just peel off the backing and adhere those down. It was a little bit, the title was a little bit larger than I had wanted it to be, but I did manage to fit it into the page. I'm putting those letters super close together and making everything really tight just to try to keep it as small as I possibly could. I do have those other pink foam alphas that I love, but it's kind of a different colored pink. It's not quite as sort of muted as the pinks in this collection and in my color palette, and so I'm just going with a larger title. Now the embellishment for this page is going to be super simple. I am using the Get Messy stamp set. That's a 6x8 stamp set. So many stamps on here, as you'll see. I'm picking out 3, and I want to stamp these ones in black. Now the stamp that I've picked on the left is going to have to stamp over several layers of paper. It is a little bit thick, especially for sort of stamping. One side's going to be stamped directly onto the background cardstock, and then I think there's 3 or 4 layers of paper underneath that. So I want to make sure I get a really nice, dark, crisp stamp. And so I'm using that Pink Fresh Detail Black ink, and when I get to that one, you'll see it stamps really nicely. But what I wanted to do with this stamping was to have it a little bit kind of messier, like not quite so crisp. I wanted to kind of ghost stamp it, and I don't find that detail black ink particularly good for that sort of thing. So I've gone back to my Memento Tuxedo Black. I've got my little ink pad there. I'm just stamping it off on some scrap paper off camera, and then I can go back in and kind of ghost stamp a couple of times around my other 2 crisp black stamps. Now I picked black because the title on my color palette, D, is in black. It kind of is a little bit lonely up there on its own, the only black on the page. And so adding those stamps is just going to add a little bit more black. And I will end up doing my journaling in black too, just to give it a little bit more. Now what I really wanted for this page was some kind of tiny word stickers, something like that. So I decided to just make my own because there's this really pretty striped paper in the collection, and I've got all of these stamps, so why not just do that myself? I'm going to stamp tone on tone, and I'm using the stripes of the paper to create my little strips. I had picked out this pink one that says creativity. The yellow I picked out wasn't quite standing out enough on top of that kind of darker golden yellow, so I re-stamped that with a little bit of a darker color. And the third sentiment I'm going to stamp on here, I'm going to stamp in blue on the blue stripe. So I'm going to cut into 3 of these stripes, but it gives me those 3 main colors, and I'm going to be able to trim those out and have my own kind of like little custom embellishments there. So a super easy technique when you've got a pattern paper like this. Of course, if you don't have stripes, you could definitely do it on cardstock or whatever, but having that tone-on-tone stamping means I get to add in some extra stamps into my layout, but it doesn't kind of overwhelm the stamping that I've already done. Now, as far as placement goes, I'm making sure to add that blue, I'm going to call it tiny word sticker. Let's put it over here. I'm going to put it on the right so that that right-hand page has like one each of those main colors. It's got blue, it's got pink, it's got yellow. The left-hand page has all of those colors, so it's less unbalanced, but that right-hand page really did need that little pop of blue on there. Now I just added all 3 of those with a little bit of smart glue from scrapbook.com. It's my favorite liquid adhesive for adding these tiny little things. It dries super quickly, which is very important to me. Now the only other embellishing that I'm going to do on this page is I wanted to add some little puffy hearts. I've got 2 different sheets here, and so I'm picking out again those colors, the blues, the pinks, and the yellows. I added a couple on the right hand side, the yellow and the pink up there, and I'm going to add this darker kind of denim blue one. I've got a little black and white stripe at the top to match that kind of gray color in the palette, and that's it. That's the page done. I am super grateful to have received this custom palette, and I can't believe how perfectly it matched this collection. I'm super loving this page. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.